Now, I want to tell you a brief story about how the British government legislated racist immigration policies and laws in the 1960s and 70s to exclude Black people from the United Kingdom. Now, I want to tell you about a concept called right of abode. Now, before the 1971 Immigration Act came into force, all British subjects, no matter where they were born, so long as they were British subjects, whether born in the UK or in the colonies, they had a right of abode at common law. Under the 71 Immigration Act, Parliament legislated at the behest of the British government to create a more racist form of right of abode. And this form of right of abode sought to exclude people from the colonies, mainly members of the Windrush generation, from coming into the United Kingdom. Now, under the Immigration Act 1971, Section 2 defines the right of abode as a person born, registered, naturalized, or adopted in the United Kingdom. Under Section 21B, the child of such a person, and under Section 21B2, the grandchild of such a person also has the right of abode. Now, under Section 21C, which is where it defined the people from the colonies had to live in the UK for 5 years or more to obtain the right of abode in the United Kingdom, this created a huge disparity because people who were aliens, people from, let's say, Canada, Argentina, Germany, people who were not British subjects, but were foreign nationals or aliens, could come to the UK and naturalize within a year, 12 months, or sometimes in some cases up to 3 years, could naturalize and fit the scope of Section 21A, born, registered, naturalized, or adopted in the UK. And they were able to transmit their right of abode to their children under 21B1 and their grandchildren under 21B2, while the citizens of the UK colonies from the colonies couldn't do that. They had to wait 5 years to get the right of abode, and they couldn't transmit that citizenship, which is what the Home Office claims. Now, under the Nationality and Borders Act 2022, we've got remedial legislation that says historical legislative unfairness. And if you've suffered historical legislative unfairness, the immigration and nationality laws based on a father not being married to the mother and you not being able to be British because of that, or other forms of discrimination, the disparity between people who had right of abode in different ways should come under that. But the Home Office, and more specifically the Home Secretary, does not want to acknowledge this. And for the most part, since 2022, when that law came into force, there have been people who have been fighting to have these legislative changes acknowledged and for the Home Office to remedy these massive injustices. But every time a case comes up, the Home Office goes and says, well, your father or grandfather had a right of abode in this way, and so before 1983 they couldn't pass on their right of abode because they had the right of abode in this way. But it was unfair. It was unfair that aliens and foreign nationals got more rights than natural-born British subjects simply because those British subjects were Black. Aliens from Germany and other parts, and for the others, the countries that remained British territories that remained loyal to the United Kingdom up until the 1980s, like Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis, Belize, and others, were put at a disadvantage and a disparity, and now their citizens want justice. I'm asking specifically the Home Secretary and the Home Office to acknowledge and register the people who have suffered for decades historical legislative unfairness based on race and origin, the color of their skin, which excluded their parents and grandparents from the scope of being able to pass on their right of abode in the UK.
British nationality law has not changed since 1983, and it is now full of anomalies. Under my plan, the Home Secretary will be able to grant citizenship in compelling and exceptional circumstances where someone has suffered historical unfairnesses beyond their control. We are also taking action so that the Windrush generation are not prevented from qualifying for British citizenship because through no fault of their own, they were unable to return to the UK and meet residence requirements. Immigration practices and processes of successive governments badly let down the Windrush generation, and I'm utterly determined that this should not happen again. And we will fix the injustice which prevents a child from acquiring their father's citizenship if their mother was married to someone else at the time of their birth. My hands will no longer be tied by an out-of-date, broken system